All right, gang, hang on. Hi. Okay, gonna mute you all for a second. Okay, everybody, welcome. Uh-oh, that's not good. Hang on. Yeah, there we go. Am I still there? Eh, no, that's funny. See, that was funny right there. I like it. All right, I think I've fixed that problem because that was annoying. Let's just get this up here. Okay. All right. Away we go. Finally, I believe I'm recording it too. I better just double check on that one. Okay, good. Okay, welcome to tonight's call. This is actually the Profitable Real Estate Agent Plan, and we're in week 5. We had a little juxtaposition of weeks from 4 to 3 because I was in too much of a hurry one week, and I flipped the mindset to last week and the content marketing to the before that. So really what we would be typically talking about is the importance of content and marketing that content. So tonight, personally, my favorite subject is all about the unique selling proposition understanding. And probably if I would have this back again, I'd flip flop those yet again. It's funny how my mind sees these things and wants to teach it to you in an order that's more anecdotal. So you can think like the 12 steps of a strategy in real estate agency is a storyline that you can easily follow logically, because it's hard to see a lot of strategy and not see it cohesively together because you won't connect to why. Why would we go through all these 12 steps? And really it's because they're strategies. And if they're broken into segments on the business model, which I talk about in week 1, you would see that some of it is business vision, then some of it's personal vision, then taking those visions and beginning planning. So marketing planning, conversion planning, closing planning, past client follow-up planning, and then generally learning how to measure all of that operationally. It's very strategic conversation, but it does very quickly get into how. So what to do is more of the strategic conversation. But obviously on this call, because a lot of you are Griffins or TRCers, I'm going to get into how, because these are the things we're teaching you to go out there immediately and do specifically, right? So tonight, when I get into this, it's an easy topic to talk about the why first, and then I'm going to go over the package, but I'm really going to emphasize the listing package because I asked Annabelle to redo some packages for me, but I have a listing presentation sample here. And the reason I'm going to get into that as a unique selling proposition is because I'm going to tie together really what a unique selling proposition is beyond just the package of information, beyond the presentation in a house. Really, it's a unique selling proposition ends up being an entire way of doing business. But with one information product, we can really kick it off in a certain direction. So just so for your information, where we've been so far this time, in the first week, we explain the model. And I always can, as you can see from this call, I can reach over and I can show you a picture of the model. These are the strategies upon which this class is built. These are the strategies where I always improve my business. In fact, this week, Laura and I needed to look at her job descriptions because it's drifted into a lot of different modules, and we don't like that. We like things to be very defined and organized, and that's a growing pain, right? So the great news is this is a scalable model, and when you have some pressures in that business, you can go to the model and you can look at it. So explain it in the first week. In the second week, we really immediately force you into this conversation about strategic business vision, that this is a business that you need to set a North Star. And when you're setting it up financially, quantitatively, you need some data. And so you really need a data point for what's the gross income that you're trying to achieve. You're not post-split, pre-split, because you're a business person. So we get into that in week 2. Mindset, again, like I said, is the typical third call. We flipped it last week, but that's the reason why we do it along with the business vision and the mindset vision, is because you're going to have to become a certain person to get your goals. So you need to know the very strategic way that the brain can be used. But then the tactical way I talk about it with Psycho-Cybernetics, or Mind Steering Systems, the book by Maxwell Maltz, it's like a bag of tools. So we talk about why mindset is important, because if you don't work on the way that you see yourself in the context of this business, who you are today is not going to be good enough to get what you want as a business. So you have to become this new thing. Well, how do you do that if you're, been this person for so long? Well, you develop a new self-image as a successful, strategic, profitable real estate agent in this context. And there's a technical book called Psycho-Cybernetics that is by far and away the best. There are others too. And if I went to financial goal setting, I would put 2 books together. I would say Goals by Brian Tracy and Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, right? I put those 2 together in those first couple of weeks after I explain the model. And then we get into marketing. And marketing is, oh my gosh, what an unwieldy subject. There are just so many things you can go out there and learn about marketing that we try to condense it down. A lot of you are quite familiar with the term content. It's not anything that's new, but it's proliferated with the digital age where there's content everywhere, right? So you've heard that word. But what does that mean as effective content for us? And what's the difference between the actual content itself and the medium upon which it is put forward? And a lot of the medium upon which your content is put forward is our brain defaults to digital. But the truth is, it's much more important to put your content in physical form. And that really leads into tonight, where we start talking about the unique selling proposition. So bringing that concept of content marketing, both physical and digital, into the unique selling proposition, showing you how they orchestrate together, but really all the while having to answer the question, why should they do business with you? Even if you have all this organized, you have to understand that you have to be passionate about why they should do business with you. And then we'll get into next week. Not everybody's going to do business with you, even when you have all this right. So we'll combine this week about being prepared to answer why they should do business, but then next week realizing it's not going to be everybody. And quite frankly, it's a very small number of people you'll end up doing business with that will help you achieve those goals, which is exciting. It's nowhere near as much as you think you need to hit these goals. So really exciting stuff here, I think, because it's certain. There are certainties in this. These are immutable rules and laws and concepts that I've learned from books that have garnered those ideas from other books and, previous generations that have learned how things work. And we just have to accept that. We have to not be naive enough to think there's anything new under the sun, as Solomon says in the Bible, right? We have to just understand we're trying to put it in order for ourselves in real estate. And that's where we find ourselves tonight. Okay. So I am going to switch over to the slideshow, and you should be seeing the opening line, why they should do business with you. And then, of course, developing a unique selling proposition to answer that question is essential. And I mean essential. You really have to learn that in a commoditized business where we are perceived by the public to all be the same, which couldn't be further from the truth, we really need to figure out a way to say that to the consumer, present that to the consumer without defaulting into some kind of a crybaby show about, oh, but I have integrity and I have work ethic, all those nonsensical virtue signals that are not unique. And make us sound, when I say crybaby, make us sound like, oh, don't challenge me, consumer. Why should I have to answer this? Because look at me, I'm a good person. Well, that's not going to happen. And worse, if you're new to the business and you don't have a unique selling proposition and you want to go out there and compete against people like me that have long resumes, and I mean like me with long resumes, longevity in the business, you can, but not if you don't do it this way, okay? So to dive into the concept of a unique selling proposition, we'll tell you that this concept was first introduced in 1940 by advertising executive Rosser Reeves. Rosser was a gentleman. If you've ever watched the series Madison, what is it, Mad Men, right? Is all about Madison Avenue and the days when it was glamorous to be in marketing and advertising. And there on Madison Avenue, New York, there are a lot of famous companies. And one of them, Ogilvy and Mathers was one, but there's another one called Ted Bates. And so Rosser Reeves worked there. So he's really credited, if you go to Wikipedia and you start looking it up, he's the one that is credited with this concept of a unique selling proposition. Now, a unique selling proposition is the one thing that sets a product or service, and I'm going to emphasize or service, okay, apart from its competitors, and makes it stand out in the marketplace. So if you have a service business like ours that's largely a commodity, meaning we're going to run around and try to get people to come and buy a house. We're going to run around and try to show somebody houses. Well, that's service, right? You're going into the MLS, you're trying to figure things out, qualitatively, you're serving somebody. You're not building a widget and selling it, right? You're not building a Henry Ford Model T and selling it. You're actually selling your service. And I'll get into productizing your service in a second, because it's actually quite helpful to see the service business as if it's a product business, because that's what helped me understand how to stand out. Because everybody else is sort of like, huh? What are you talking about? And they start to virtue signal. And again, the people that are top producers, my gosh, they rely so heavily on resume that a lot of times they do themselves a disservice because things are evolving and they're not really saying or doing something differently, right? So according to Reeves, a strong USP should be unique, specific, meaningful, and memorable. To me, I like the words meaningful, specific. Those are words that I heard very loudly and clearly once upon a time in the good old Boston Garden, way back when a guy came to speak and started talking about meaningful specifics. Okay. Zig Ziglar was his name, and he's since passed, but he was a great motivational speaker. And he said, why would you ever be a wandering generality when you could be a meaningful specific? So that starts to tie into the thinking. And again, remember, these are strategies. We're talking at a strategic level. So once you have these strategies and you understand how important they are, you can watch me dive down into tactical, right? Or tactical, or the actual execution of a plan that satisfies these strategies is a good way to explain it. We're going to get into very meaningful specifics that are very memorable because they're very particularly tailored towards sellers and buyers individually based on that individual's needs. So we can really make it so unique and specific and memorable so easily, yet the industry doesn't really embrace that, but we do. And it's changed everything. So today, the concept of USP remains an important part of marketing and branding strategy. So a lot of people will come to me and they'll have a perception of marketing, and their default mechanism in their brain is, I got to get my name out there. Huh? You got to get your name out where? And when your name's out there, what does it say to people about the fact that you could help them sell a property for a good number, or help them buy a property a good number? What does it have to say? It doesn't say anything. So see, that's the wandering generality that the brain defaults to. And that or somebody says, hey kid, you got to get your name out there. Usually a parent that says that, right? Because most people have zero clue about how marketing actually works, because nobody ever picks up any books anymore and goes and says, hey, there are some immutable facts about how marketing works. And to have a unique selling proposition isn't just as easy as coming up with some gimmicky line. I had a mentor for many years who, I don't know why he did this, but came up with a real gimmicky, unique selling proposition statement that was like very exclusive. So in other words, my brain was always hurt thinking, well, wait a minute. Why would I say something like that when it doesn't appeal to all sellers? It doesn't appeal to all buyers. That doesn't make any sense to me. I've got to come up with a unique selling proposition / an offer that I can make to sellers and buyers that I don't know. And if I make it often enough, if I market that to particular people, it's going to create a sense of brand that Griffin Realty Group, or the Griffin as its extension, says a very particular thing because we have a plan, right? That's really the crux of our unique selling proposition. Because we have a plan. What, you say? Yes, we have a meaningfully specific plan that we can customize for you individually. Well, doesn't everybody have that? I can't speak for everybody, but I can speak for myself and the unique way that I have productized my service. Let that sink in, because you're going to see the segue here. So this is what it means to be marketing and branding in a very specific, unique way over time. You don't just go out and do this and all of a sudden miracles happen. You set a long trajectory for that business vision that you say, someday my business is going to be consistent and predictable, and I am going to easily find prospects who would like to sell preferably and or buy with me because they saw my offer as unique. So they began to listen to me and allow me to build relationship over a long enough time where eventually they become a client who trusts me well enough to lead them through the process. Right? It's a narrative. You see how you just sew that narrative together? And it's a narrative based in the logic of marketing strategies around a unique selling proposition. Now, companies seek out and promote their unique selling propositions as a way to differentiate themselves from competitors and capture the attention of customers. When you listen to our recorded calls on Friday, it is the easiest place to see this tactically being effective when somebody gets it right. So when we talk about meaningful specifics about our unique selling proposition, that's why we need to be very disciplined and meaningfully specific when we read a script over the phone, when we door knock and say those words. It's extremely important. It's extremely important to be that kind of disciplined person so that the differentiation of you versus everybody else is clear. Roberto was telling me about going out to a house the other day and door knocking it. And he had the package in his hand and he began to say the script, and she cut him off for a second and said, "Oh no, another realty?" He said, "No, hold on." And he went back to the meaningful specifics. I'm here. And he started to show it to her. I'm here to give you pictures and details of properties that sold around yours straight from MLS, just like realtors. I'm here to give you a one-page statistical market update. I'm here to give you a copy of the 7-step plan that I customize for my clients. I'm here to give you that. Well, that pattern interrupted her, right? So that unique selling proposition, articulated clearly, grabs the attention and captures the attention. Better word here, captures the attention of the consumer. And she just gets stopped in her tracks. And she says, "What? You would just give that to me?" It's so stunning of a unique selling proposition because nobody can understand that we're that different that we would actually have taken the time to put this stuff together, put it in a package, in a physical product package, and give it to them, and really genuinely not ask for anything in return, at least in that moment. Now, of course, anybody with a brain bigger than the scarecrow at the Wizard of Oz realizes you probably want to do business with them, but you've gone into a deeper psychological level with them. You've influenced them in a different sort of way by this unique selling proposition offer that's meaningful, specific, and it captures the attention of the consumer, even for a small window of time. As you listen to those calls on Fridays, they're about 15 seconds. So it's not going to take you more than 15, 20 seconds if you don't get interrupted to say it on a porch door, or to say it, online. Right? I mean, on the phone. It's not going to take you longer than that. So we're coming down to saying, can we create in advance a unique selling proposition way of doing business? Could we then productize a lot of that way? And could we use other basic marketing concepts of giving this away, psychological laws of triggering the law of reciprocity. Could we do all of that to get ourselves in such a unique position that we are in what I would term a competitionless lane? And the answer is absolutely yes. And I know that because I've been doing it long enough now outside of my business with a lot of you who have realized that this unique selling proposition, regardless of your experience, is a pattern interrupt. And it's a competitor. Wendy McGrath and I went to her neighbor's house, and it wasn't the easiest presentation. And she was already up against, or was going to be up against, a direct sale to builders at wholesale. She also was going to have some competition from another realtor. But this was so clear that in spite of some of their pushbacks, which were a little bit odd, she won. Danielle Gonzalez has gone up to the door of multiple houses, and she's built a book of prospects. I think last Danielle was 138,000. Annabelle Pereira today told me that she finally just put an agreement on a house that she had listed that was a for sale by owner that started this way. Luke used all of these unique selling proposition manners and ways of doing business to get a price reduction on his girlfriend's father's condo, to get that priced right and under agreement within a very short period of time. So we know that this is transferable to a lot of different people. But again, we go back to saying you have to understand the why here. So this course is usually about the why, but now we're going to get down into the tactical stuff. Okay. So I think that's all my slides for that one. It is. Okay. So I am going to turn off the screen here. Certainly I can see if there are any questions beyond that, but I want to get into talking about this specifically, and I want to be able to segue a little bit into the presentation part of it. I want to take you for a unique selling proposition walk. Okay. I'm going to talk about the physical package, but I want to make it very clear before I do. A unique selling proposition in the context of this group is not a package of information. Okay. It's a way. There's a difference. We are going to use physical product, information product. Yes. And that medium of physical versus sending you USP digitally is a massive medium difference. But you see, it's not the unique selling proposition in and of itself as a package, because it could be sent digitally, but it's not as effective. And then what that whole package sets you up for in a listing context is a listing presentation where there are some logical add-ons. So we're being unique in the way that we do things as add-ons. And then we're going to execute that very plan when somebody's a client. And we're going to make adjustments and keep people's crazy locked up in our system so we don't lose deals because they don't have a framework. So see, that's a way of doing things. And even through the closing process, everything's being crossed and dotted. And into the past client, where we're teaching you, don't ever forget about your past clients. They always stay there. And it's the very same content, which we talked about in that, I want to say last week, but it was 2 weeks ago. That content continues to go to people forever. So you see, a unique selling proposition is a way, but there are some unique physical things and digital things and verbal things that you do along the way tactically, and you're locked into that unique way. And that's what a system really is, right? And a really good system has a unique cohesiveness to it. Not that the components are rocket science, not that your competitors don't necessarily do pieces of it, but most of them might even have some piece of the puzzle, but they're all over the floor. Ours, we're trying to interlock them very specifically so we protect ourselves, our leads, our prospects, our clients, our closings, and our past clients, so that we're producing this happy past client who's likely to repeat and refer. Well, voila, there's your assembly line. See, when I started to think about this, and I'll never forget reading about a unique selling proposition for a product, and I said, how could we productize this? Because we always seem to default in a service to virtue signaling, right? How could we productize this? So I went to the extreme in this unique selling proposition exercise, and I started to say, well, in a service, the most extreme thing I could do is give everything in that service away for free. charge nothing. That would be it. That's what I would do. So I imagined, okay, that doesn't make sense because I can't get paid, but what are the pieces of it that maybe I could pull out and I could give away for free? Well, I could certainly give the pictures and the details of the properties from MLS. Every broker's petrified to give that away. Why would I give that away if they're not going to give me the listing, says the brain, right? I might tell them how the market is, but it's pretty all over the place. It's a buyer's market. It's a seller's market. So I had a couple of things in mind that I would take to a listing presentation or I would educate a buyer about. So I've got these pictures and details. I've got this, how's the market? What if I could just turn those two things into information products, physical products? And I had the benefit of being exposed to a guy by the name of Dan Kennedy, who coached my mentor in marketing. And I understood from him what an information product was because that's his whole shtick. He talked about a physical package of tapes where you could learn marketing from him, and it was physical. So I had seen what an information product looked like. It was information on tape. So I figured, why not information in booklets, right? And print. Why couldn't I do that? And so that's all I did was I took that exercise. But then I thought, okay, but I have to have a plan for this too. I can't just give that away because sort of like if somebody, wanted to, they could give away pictures and details. They're probably never going to think about all the quantitative detail that they could get out of MLS and put in a one pager. So I thought I could be unique then. And then lastly, I said, but I got to give them tips and details away for free because that's what I would do if I were really listing them or helping them, buy for free. So I went to Starbucks and I said, the third piece of this idea has to be a plan. So I'm just going to write out a plan for them. So if I write out a plan and it sort of indicates how to use the pictures and details and how to use the market update and how to go through these steps, what if I could turn that all into something and just give it away? Now, what scares people when you're talking about a unique selling proposition information product like that is you think to yourself, well, I've lost all the value in me. If I give them all that, they could go do it by themselves. Well, what a bizarre, naive concept that is. Do you really think people can just go out and sell their house by themselves because you give them information? Not in the least. I've had my neighbor who bought a property from me that I had cut off a piece of my land and sold it to my buddy. He built a spec house and we sold it. And this guy was a neurosurgeon. And he said to me, I had no idea what you guys were talking about. You guys have a language all to yourselves. I mean, here at the top of the food chain in a hospital, but had no idea what we were talking about. So don't ever presume that the consumer, no matter how smart they are, has any clue about how to really go through this process. So even if you give it all to them, they're also busy in their lives too. So they need what? Your insight. Well, that's the one thing that I can't really give away without really becoming intimately involved. And so that's the step up that I really get deeply involved so that by this time, through the information plus the insight, I was going to have the faith that was so unique that I would become logically the right person to list with, the right person to buy through. I wanted to do it so deeply that I had opened up not just a competitionless lane, but I'd just basically made any sense of going anywhere else go away. So that I was also building, more importantly, a unique relationship of exchange. So what I probably discounted and didn't lean in heavily enough on and educate you, which I will now, is the law of reciprocity. When you are a content marketer online, for example, you are also known as an influencer. You're creating content that influences people to follow you, bare minimum. So it's the same concept here. If I can bring the right content to somebody who has a real need to sell or buy, probably inside the next 12 months maximally to start, if I can do that, I can influence them. If I can influence them with giving this stuff physically, I've really given away a free product. I could put a price tag on this. If you went into any bookstore and wanted to read how to do something, you'd pay $35 for a book and wouldn't even sneeze at the price. So I could put a price tag of $35 on this easily because it's just that educated organized information. And by the way, this booklet is customized to the unique selling, the unique idea that this person has. Like, this is my house. I don't need to know what the stuff down the street sold for unless it's around my house. You see what I'm saying? So this is even tailored more specifically and meaningfully individualistically, he said, to a person. So this is a super, super uber value thing, right? Very much so. And if they take the advice, it could be the difference in thousands of dollars. So is it really worth $35, or is it worth $12,500? Specifically, one of my deals right now, I got them an extra $12,500 because they were listening to everything here. They allowed me to tweak the price where I could get a couple people bidding against each other. Somebody kind of had us over a barrel at 800,000. And I used that deal to say to the next person, listen, we've had an offer. We just couldn't put it together. They came in right away at 837.5, and we got the deal done, right? Or 825, we split the difference between that and 850. 837.5, we got the deal done. So I could make an argument that this little package of information for that client who's a repeat with me was worth $37,500. Because the best deal I had was 800. But yet when we went into the meaningful, specific details about pricing it right and adjusting the price and evolving the listing, we painted this place. Now we're doing these smokes, radons, like we had to do things, right? So this very plan here ended up being worth a jump in value from 800 to 837,500. Another time this was applied last month, same thing happened. Where they followed the pricing it right strategy. They evolved the listing. They fixed some shingles. They fixed a leak. Again, we used this booklet. We went from being stuck at, we were ready to accept the deal, I think at 810. And I said, well, this guy has us stuck here. You're at 850. He's at 810. Don't go to him yet. Give me another week. Drop the price from 874.9 down to 859.9. And let's see what happens. The next day, I got $859.9. So that was worth $49,000 to them. So again, not only is it unique in the way that it's put together, it's powerful if you follow it too, and you stick to it too. And this becomes your guiding light for this, right? So you really, the more that you understand what this unique selling proposition, organized information product means to you, it's staggering what it could mean to your clients. Staggering. Like, it's hard to believe sometimes what happens. There was another case, I can think of 3 cases right away, right? Well, one, they really listened to me and they wanted a clean deal. We got 5 offers in a week. Even though we took one for 50 grand less than the asking price when we had full price, they took the house as is, doing their own septic system and everything. So it worked in that case, and that's a difficult case because it's a divorce. So it is just amazing to me that I can go anecdote after anecdote after anecdote, and I can apply tactically what's in here. But remembering every one of those stories I just told you, whether they're a repeat client, whether they're referred from somebody, whether it's an expired or for sale by owner and somebody we don't know, everybody gets this from the start. And everybody gets locked into following this from there. So let me go a little bit further into this, okay? What you see in front of you today is not the mailer, but it's the physical example of a listing package. This is exactly what it's going to look like when I go out. So I've said many times to all of you, especially on the Friday noon call where I go buyer package, seller package, buyer package, seller package. I want you to understand how critical it is to me and should be to you, how organized everything is so it tells its own story. If you were to drop it and go deaf mute, you need this stuff to be able to explain what happens. So when we have an infographic, and here's what it is, you can see the nice organized way that Annabelle's put this together for me. Front to back, seller infographic. Why? Because when I finally get to a house and I'm going to present, I'm not going to read the details of the full plan. I'm going to slide this across the table and use this to keep the conversation flowing smoothly at the highest level, which I would call the syllabus of how this is going to go down. Next, we even dive deeper because over time you evolve a plan to say, well, wait a minute. We know that uniquely we're going to have to discuss marketing. So of the 7 steps, the one thing everybody needs to be controlled on and not run away with their perception is marketing. So we have a second infographic that we break out when we start talking about marketing. Then from there, we actually have something we call the Griffin Luxury Plan, where we'll actually bring with us a complete and thorough detail of all of those pieces in marketing. So with marketing, we deep dive so that we can just be so unique in our articulation of how a listing actually gets marketed to help sell it, that we eliminate all questions and all misperceptions. So from a presentation standpoint, this is there. And then obviously the booklet with its full articulation, detail by detail, about 4 bullet points per each one of these 7, that's all there. So from a content standpoint about the plan, when I get to the house, I can begin to use these implements to deep dive into the components of the plan that I know are most important to the consumer. 1 is pricing, 2 is marketing, okay? Everybody wants the price and everybody wants to know how you're going to market the property, even though they don't understand marketing. They think they do, right? So that's front to back. And I have these very particular folders, okay, that are bifold and the information goes inside. So it's ready to be presented. So all of the plan information in its deeper form. And by the way, the original package does never have any of this. It only has the booklet. If you get a mailed package from me or door knock package, it's only, he said, the booklet. You want them to take the time to read through it or see it. And again, here we go with all this branding and marketing. This unique selling proposition and its components, there's beautiful marketing. The aesthetic of the thing has evolved. There's a resume of pictures and details in there. And then there's all the beautiful details and descriptions of how to go through pricing deeper. But it's written. So if you want to consume me in a written way, that's what you do. So all of that content goes on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we get much more tactical. So we would have 2 CMAs, and they're not really even CMAs. They're actually just pictures and details of properties that have sold. So we put them together. Why? Because when I started doing this on Cape Cod especially, I realized that I needed to look at pictures and details of properties that sold in a couple of different ways. I would have to go locally, and this is hyper local. This is a Boston one. So this is actually Dorchester, just one of the parts of Boston. I would have to go hyper local to see how the neighborhood would affect this. And Dorchester is an interesting place because it has really rough neighborhoods and really beautiful ones, right? So I have to see if the neighborhood effect is there. But then I'd have to go all Dorchester to see what multifamilies would look like. So there's the pictures and the details. And then the number one skill set that you'd be learning with me is how to do a technical analysis, okay? Don't pass go unless you know how to do a technical analysis of the pictures and details. Why? Because we're sitting here talking about a unique selling proposition, and any dummy can print pictures and details. And this is what the industry teaches is a CMA, and it's not, right? Where's the analysis? Where's the comparison? They're just pictures and details of things that sold. The analysis, ask Zillow and Redfin and Realtor.com what analysis looks like. They hijacked all your sign calls by putting an analysis algorithm on their sites. So we came up with the basic math that's behind it, an algorithm, which is just a mathematical process to guesstimate a value range as to where something would sell. And it turns out it's not rocket science at all. It's division. This is the number one skill set you will ever learn under my watch, taking these and taking the sold prices divided by the assessed values and seeing that it actually gives you a range. There's a high, there's an average, and a low. And when you walk into a house, you can look at its assessed value, multiply it times the high ratio, the average, or the low, depending on what you see in front of you. Duh. Stupid simple was hiding in plain sight. So all of that is on the right-hand side. And in addition, there's a how's the market? because they're going to go on to know, okay, now there's my math, but is now the time? Well, here's the direction of what's going on. Now's the time if you have a why and a motivation to do so. And here's just the fact of the market. If you follow the 7-step plans and you do certain things, I'll get you top dollar for whatever market we're in because you have a real why and a motivation to do so. So who cares how the market is if those things are important? You just need to know what's happening in the market, right? And then lastly, wildly unique and incredibly powerful is if I take some of the guesstimates on the average and maybe towards the lower end, or if I've done my job correctly and asked the seller qualifying questionnaire questions, I can guesstimate the range within which this would sell. And I can sit there and say to them, look, I did this conservatively before I came over here. We can always goose it up. And if it's ugly, it's down. I don't know what your mortgage payoff is, but there's what your bottom line would be before your mortgage payoff. And everybody skips right over what? The commission. And goes right to where? The bottom line. Why? Because that's what matters. But if you want to be like the sheeple and get caught up in lowering your fee because you're getting beaten up over fee and marketing, that's because you don't have a unique selling proposition way of organizing the correct information in the correct order to re-educate them on how to think about this. Rarely does fee become an issue for me. Rarely. And if it does, I probably smell a non-avatar. Okay, so that's going to be left behind with them, and it's going to be put in front of them so that as I'm discussing this, I go piece by piece. But I don't let them control the table. I'm going to go for my walk through the house. Thank you, so I can see what's good, what's bad, so I can talk about condition, staging, etc., and how that affects price. But I'm going to pull out the 7 steps. I'm going to put it across the table for me. And before I start, I'm going to say what's most important to you about selling your property. And a lot of them are going to get a deer in the headlight look and say, right? I'll say, okay, well, you don't have to have something. I just want to see in the case that I want to emphasize something. I'm a marketer, so I want to know about marketing. Wonderful. You're going to love the deep dive on that, right? Well, I want to know how you're going to get us top price. Great. I brought some math today. We'll see if it supports what you told me you thought it was worth. You thought it was 1.2. Okay, we're going to see if we have math that supports that, and then we'll talk about how to get it, right? So everything just becomes completely controlled. When you do this too, you're getting rid of so many objections that they come with because they have misperceptions about how our business works. So stop letting the tail wag the dog. Come in prepared to discuss this. Now, I always have their information, and I always have the stuff I need for me. So off the bat, I'm going to come in. Sorry, I bounced this around a little bit. But I come in and I pull up to a house with this all organized. He said, I might have taken it out of here. I would have a seller qualifying questionnaire all filled out. I don't have one in this one, but I would have that. So I would have a seller qualifying questionnaire. I would have the MLS listing sheet if it was listed before. And I would have the town assessor sheet because I'm going to use that in my math. I would have a copy of the 2 lists of properties it sold. And I would have the 2 technical analyses that go with each one. And I would have the net sheet in here. So this is my stuff. And especially when I walk out of there and leave them with their version of it, and I take my version, I have my stuff for follow-up in the future. Okay. So your unique selling proposition continues from the mailer and now gets into things that are unique when I go face-to-face. So what's unique again, to reiterate? Any infographic unique to a face-to-face. I could give it away to the buyer, at an open house too, because it'd be in there and I might want to pull it out and say, hey, here's a quick presentation, right? So, but infographics are unique to face-to-faces, and you never, ever give away your analysis and your net sheet unless you're face-to-face. The exception to that rule is if the only way to get face-to-face because they live out of state is a Zoom, and then you send it 10 minutes before you get on the Zoom. Never give away your analysis. Why? Because you have to be in the house to tell them where in that range you are. If you leave their small pea brain when it comes to real estate to interpret math and quantitative, you're dead. Okay? All right, so there's a little bit of a different spin on the unique selling proposition conversation. Let's go to Q&A. By the way, Shauna, you had a request from me. And that request was to give you the fill in the blanks. So I did that for you. But I did it for you because I moved them into, so you're going to see all of you in the Zoom. You're going to see a link to, sorry, I got to get to the chat here. Where's my chat? Um, in the chat, you are going to see the link to the document for the classes. And what I did for you is inside of that, there are all of the fill in the blanks. Link down the bottom. Yep. Profitable agent plan. Click on that. Okay. Yeah. Yep. 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 So those are the blanks though. So what I'll probably do also is remind me to put the slides into. I'll give you guys everything, right? So you'll have the slides and the fill in the blanks. You know, it's important, I think, to you know how I feel about it, writing it too. So it's sort of like a study course. You can see it on the slides, but I would write in the blanks. Okay. Yep. Cool. Yep. Let me just check that drive. Let me see if the yeah. So the drive, those are all the fill in the blanks. Let's go back to these slides. Yeah, so I put fill in the blanks, but I'll also I'll put all these others together too, and I'll give a link to that too. So you'd actually have separately. So in here, when you open it up, you're going to see all the weeks, right? I just have to clean up the slides for you too. All right, and you guys can have it all. Of course. Yep. Yeah, you know what? Remind me to make a playlist of these. I have to see if you can make a playlist of the lives. I know you can. I just have not had the time to sit still and organize that, but I'm getting there. I'm catching up right now for the end of the year. So if you could remind me of that too, I will make and the reminders, please make a playlist on the YouTube channel of the PAP classes. Okay. Well, it's not that hard to do for me. It's actually quite easy. So it's a waste of time to outsource it because it's pretty easy. Yep. Download what? Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's for all of you. No, 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 it's for all of you. What I did was, let me share a screen here. Hang on. I'll be specific, which I should have done, Alexis. Let's see. Here, share this. Let me share it on YouTube too, so they know what I'm just talking about. So I am talking about simply saying at the bottom, okay, at the bottom of that document, you should all be seeing up on the screen. There's a live link. Yeah. So see this live link? This is a link. So if you just open that link, it's going to open into this tab here where you're going to see all of these PowerPoint fill in the blanks. Okay. That's what she had asked me for. What I will do also, though, is see that's all in that little folder there. I'm going to create another one for the PowerPoint itself to give you the slides. So if you just hit the slides, it'll fill in those blanks like it does. Okay. I'm just going to give you it. You'll have everything. Okay. Yeah. And I think go ahead. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. 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 Yeah, well, again, if we stick to the yellow brick formula, we can overcome some of that stuff because see, it's with some cultures, bartering is a natural thing. So the Indian culture, you can ask Anita, who I've coached for 20 years, it's very natural for there to be bartering. So I said to Lee, because he brought that up to me, and I said, well, listen, I said, there are certain circumstances under which I would take a discounted commission because it's a good listing. We can do open houses there. It looks great on the website. Grant and I were talking about that tonight about another deal too. So sometimes if the person is reasonable and it's a good price and I can use it for multiple reasons and we can all get paid, I'll take a lesser fee, especially if it's a higher end like 1.5. So in a 1.5, if I took a 2% commission on my side, let's say I took 2%. I know in my mind's eye, I'm satisfied because that's 30 grand, 28, 30 grand, right? And I try to, whenever possible, be at $1 million at 2.5% for 25. And you know that I show it all the time on the mastermind calls. I'm averaging a little bit over 1 and my average commission a little over 26. So that's the other thing I told him too. I said, keep that in mind too. If we were sitting here at $350,000 and somebody's beating you up for 1%, that's non-avatar. Move on. Right. But if you think in terms of our business vision, which starts with that GCI goal tracker, and we see the mean and the median even less, and we say, okay, let's just say the median is six. Sorry, I got distracted by Phil's question. Phil, I'll tell you in a second. So if I get to the median at 800,000 and I'm 2% there, I'm 16. Okay. So I'd even take that because that's not terrible either. It's just when somebody gets low end business and gets beaten up on commission, the problem is it almost becomes habitual. So I was looking at Dan Orr's business, Sarah's brother, today with their other brother, Dave, and they had all these prospects and they're all buyers and everything's being carried at 2%. And I said, you see the one for one, the one for 1.3 and the other one for 950? Okay, I'm not bad with those at 2%, but this is my point to you. If we're only going to do buyer lead generation, then let's cheat towards getting packages out and prospecting the best ones because at 2% of, 1.3, you're 26,000, right? So that's doable. Those things are doable, but we have to be very careful in letting other people dictate to us how we do business. But the worst dictation is when you're a heavy, heavy buy side business and you're going out and you have to go show a listing where some knucklehead realtor who couldn't fight their way out of a wet paper bag explaining their value has been reduced by the seller because there's nothing unique. The seller doesn't understand anything. Seller's in control. So the seller and a bad agent are dictating to you how much you can make because you can go in and get in a fight over it at 2.5%. But if it's a competitive house in a bid, you might lose the house for your client. So you're in a really bad business model like that. So you have to think through these things, right? So, good. Phil, we use somebody called Minuteman Press. It's a local franchise. It's a franchise, not local, but it's a franchise, a Minuteman Press. But I think probably you have access to the Griffin Teachable, right? If you, yeah, okay, go in there, and I think there might be something about the stock that we use, so that you can check that out. Okay, and if yeah, yeah. Yeah, so Minuteman Press does our stuff for us, but I can get you more details tomorrow. I might just have to ask Laura if it's not in the Teachable site. Okay, good. All right, questions for me? I got 5 minutes left here before I turn it into a pumpkin. Go. Of course you do. Yep. Well, why would you hold on. Why would you have to fight with him? Okay, stop, stop, stop. How often have you done net sheets? Net sheets. No. Eh, You hear me? Nope, you pattern interrupt, pattern interrupt. Nope, nope, you see your arm is doing this. You go like this right here and you go, "What can I do to explain to him what he's walking away with better? What can I do to calm him down and to keep him focused on the net?" You're not answering that question right now. No, no, no. So you're hold on. The tail's wagging the dog. We have a system. Okay. The house is worth what it's worth, and you're worth what you're worth. So it's got nothing to do with you and how you're doing things. Have you brought people through the house at these prices? Okay. How often have you executed the open house plan? Okay. Okay. That's it. Just a few. Okay. So you've had 12 people through the house, which is better than he got before. What's the current asking price? Okay. Did anybody come back for a second showing? Okay. So, okay. Stop, 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 stop. Because I'm going to move quickly through you because you're going to just go blah, blah, blah in your head. Okay. Right. No, 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 don't apologize. I'm trying to not let you get busy in your head. It's a very simple system. You have to keep him focused on the bottom line. And you should be talking about extensions right now. You're the only one that's worked this hard for this guy. And you're the only one that's going to work this hard for this guy. And you've gotten 12 people through and nobody has made an offer. But yet the business out there is generally busy, isn't it? When's the last time you showed him what you were up against, competing against that's pending or sold since you've been on? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So he's a fear-based guy. Okay. Because he's afraid of moving. It's just like some of these other deals with like Annabelle. I told Annabelle, I said, listen, your guy is having the shock that he's actually going to move to Singapore, right? So he's giving her resistance too. And it took a long time. So sometimes you just have to be patient with him. So you got 12 people through, you've been at 688, but you have to do some net sheets with them. Why did any of the 12 hold on, stop, stop. Did any of the 12 people say that it needed work? Okay. So what work is he talking about doing? Why I don't I that's not stopping the sale. That's one person said what they would do, but you had 12 people in. One person said that. What other work is well, hold on. What other work is hang on. Shh, quiet your mind down. What other work is he talking about doing? Yeah. Okay. Okay. All of this is nonsense. All of it's nonsense. You're in the range because you've gotten 12 people to come through, but you're not in the range close enough to get an offer. In your opinion, why not? Okay. Yeah, he has a neighborhood effect. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to do for me. Okay. I want you to do for me. I want you to do what I just talked about. I want you to take a look at the analysis for the neighborhood effect, the immediate neighborhood effect, not that nice one down the street, the immediate neighborhood effect. I want you to get as many solds there. And I want you to do an analysis in a net sheet. And I want you to present it to me before you present it to him. Yeah. Well, listen, um, like one of my clients, he has cognitive issues. So what you need to do is learn how to be patient and just keep going. And in the meantime, don't get one dealitis, which you have. You need to get another listing. Yep. All right. Okay. So did you get the package? Did you get the package out? Okay. Just follow up. And then you can dig in later. Danielle, if I were your age and I was trying to build my book of business, I wouldn't be anywhere near as picky as a guy who's 58 years old, 26 years in. Okay. Like I have the benefit of time over you, so I can be more judicious. But if I had a 1.5 and I was 23 years old, I'd hand deliver it to her with a bow on it. And I'd work her like a rented mule up and down the hill until she broke, one way or the other. You have nothing to lose. You're building a business from zero. No, it's very typical. Agents suck. Keep calling him and just say, "Hey, listen, as a courtesy call, my guy's really jonesing for some feedback. Can you give me some, please?" Hold on, hold on, hold on. You did him a courtesy. He owes you one in return. When you show a property to another agent, it's a courtesy. The problem is this industry is loaded with unprofessional people. And I don't mean they're bad people. I just mean they're unprofessional. They haven't been trained on how to behave, right? They don't belong in a business like this, but they're in it. So you have to just be persistent. Yeah. Yeah. So you're at a whole other level already. So just be you need one big word written on a piece of paper. Patience. You need patience. You have somebody with a cognitive issue. Just keep reeling him in slowly like a tuna at the bottom of the ocean. He's hooked. but you just have to keep reeling. Okay. So your exercise is for me this time. You're going to do an analysis because you need to go deeper on the quantitative stuff. Okay. Okay. Good. Sounds good. Mike Mercervi, what do we mean including neighborhood effect? Oh, in the net sheet discussion. I'm confused by your question. It's better if you just ask me. The way it's typed is confusing to me. You got to open your mic, Mike. Mike Maservi, you there? Mike. Okay. Well, I'll answer. Hi, buddy. I don't. Good. Yeah, I don't quite understand the question. Can you ask me again? Yep. Yeah. Yes. Well, it doesn't go in the net sheet price. They go together, but it doesn't go in it per se. Here's what happens. I want her to look at everything again that's sold in his neighborhood. I want her to also be judgmental or judicious about what she chooses that's sold around him to be more like kind because there's a really high end younger neighborhood. Don't include those. Okay. He's not that. It helps because it's not that far away from him with his expensive houses. But the stuff that he's competing against, including stuff that's sold right across the street, he's better than them, but by how much? So she needs to go back maybe even 24 months and look at things that are more like his condition that's sold, do that analysis, see what that analysis says, and then compare that to everything that she's been able to get at 688 and see if that analysis leads her to think that this property is worth less than 688. Does she have evidence to show him why it's not getting an offer at 688? So that's what I meant. So just she does the analysis. Yeah, because the analysis, Mike, what I learned over time is you could do that. Just you could do a radius and say, give me everything in Osterville. And I had a little crack shack down the street. It was a cottage. Okay. If I did a half a mile radius, I would be picking up waterfront manses for a lot of money. Okay. I could still do a relative analysis to its assessed value, but I'd be better to say, okay, let's do Osterville, but still let's do more like kind. So I will do the circle, but maybe it's more like a geometric shape where I'm going to go north of Main Street and I'm going to look for smaller houses and I'm going to see what's out there. And I'm going to include those only in my analysis. So when I analyze things, I'm going to try to get like kind close by. Those are the two masters we're always trying to serve. The relative analysis helps us compare those apples to oranges because we don't have this commoditized product. We're not selling a barrel of coffee beans, right? Versus a barrel of coffee beans. It's just so subjective that we need some math to help us. But choosing out of MLS which properties, stay as close to the property as you can and stay in similar, condition and size. That's why we do both. Sometimes I'll just do a circle. Plus, I'll say, okay, now give me all the ranches in Osterville from 1,200 to 1,500 square feet. And I'll pick 6, 7 of those, right? So like kind and immediate neighborhood effect. So when you hear me use those terms, neighborhood effect, what's around me? I could be a really beautiful house with a bunch of crap boxes around me. So that neighborhood effect is drawing me down value wise. Whereas I could be the ugly duckling in the neighborhood with beautiful houses that could be pulling me up, right? Make sense? Yep. Yeah. Well, what's it? Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Well, just you don't have any value yet. You don't have any value. You have an information product that you're trying to give them to help them. So If what's the price he's for sale by owner at? Okay. 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 So 775, 779, something like that, right? Okay, but hold on, stop. Forget about all that. Your value to him is to make an information package for him. Have you made one? Okay, good, good, good. So you had pictures and details around 777, right? Okay. You had the seller booklet, okay, and you had a market update for Cape Cod? You gave it to him? What did he say? W yeah, yeah. Well, you won't get back. Yeah, well, you won't get back to him. What you'll do is make the next part of the offer. Have you been in the house? Okay. What you could do and should do is the next thing. You should do an analysis of the stuff you gave him to include a net sheet. So you're not doing the next thing. Do the next thing. You can show it to me too after you do it. Okay. Good. Okay. So you have to make the next offer. Otherwise, you're sort of fumbling and stumbling. The next offer is listen, I've been in your house. I can give you tips on what to do and not to do, but I'm going to do an analysis to include a net sheet. Don't tell them that yet. Do it. Just like the homework I asked Danielle to do. Both of you doing the same thing. Bring it to me for review, and then we'll talk about how to present it. All right. Good. Good. You're welcome. All right, gang. It is the end of the road for me because I'm way over time and I don't like to do that to you on Wednesday nights. So, and Giselle, by the way, welcome out there on the left coast. Welcome. It's good to have you. Okay, gang. We'll see you all to well, for some of you tomorrow on Thursday's call in the mastermind. You're all welcome on that now, by the way. I've opened that up to everybody. And then Friday, of course, is Tactical Fridays where we go over the plan and listen to the call. So see you then. Have a good night. You're welcome.